We still have 3 or 4 hours before this technically expires. Should we not give them more time to find a way to extend this? Could it be done?
Thank you so much for having me on. The ceasefire up until now has been hugely successful for both sides. And even when there had been opportunities to pull out from it because of small hiccups along the way, both the Israelis and Hamas persisted because, as I said, this was a good deal for them. Israel was able to bring home hostages at a ratio of 1 hostage to 3 prisoners. Historically, Israel had traded prisoners and hostages at a ratio of 1 to 1,000. It also created space for significant humanitarian relief in Gaza, much needed, and gave both sides an opportunity to recuperate. When the Israeli cabinet initially voted for, in support of the ceasefire, it voted for a 10-day ceasefire to give the Israeli government space to negotiate to extend it beyond just 4 days. And so we saw that first extension. I do believe there is still the possibility that it will be extended further. As you noted, there are several hours left, but I don't see an extension that would last more than a few days.
Well, an extension, of course, is something the Biden administration has been pushing for. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken actually commented about this earlier today. Just take a listen, if you will, to what he said.
We'd like to see the pause extended because what it has enabled, first and foremost, is hostages being released, coming home, being reunited with their families. It's also enabled us to surge humanitarian assistance into the people of Gaza who so desperately need it. So its continuation, by definition, means that more hostages would be coming home, more assistance would be getting in.
So, Carmiel, obviously, there has been things achieved during this brief period of truce, both humanitarian aid getting in, hostages getting out. There is, though, more work to be done. There are more than 100 hostages that still remain hostage by either Hamas or other organizations in Gaza. There is still, obviously, great humanitarian need. And I wonder if this truce specifically does actually expire without an extension, how much harder it will be to reach another deal to continue these same pursuits. If it doesn't get extended, is that all the brief pause we're going to see?
So Israel has made very clear that it is not prepared to abandon its military objectives of eliminating Hamas from leadership and driving it out of the Strip. I would expect to see a return to a slightly different phase of war than what had happened in the kind of first iteration or these first month and a half of conflict, in part because of pressure from the Biden administration on Israel to ensure that it is operating, particularly in the South, in a way that is more mindful of civilian casualties and further displacement. I would expect that there will continue to be negotiations taking place behind the scenes, that the White House will continue to be involved in, led by the Qataris and the Egyptians, to talk through what an additional cessation of violence could look like, or what an ultimate ceasefire day after could be. But I agree, I think it will be very difficult to return to a pause once this pause ends.
Carmiel, I have to ask you about a very troubling headline that we have seen today. The IDF says it is assessing the accuracy of this claim by Hamas that the youngest of the Israeli hostages, only a 10-month-old child, along with his brother and mother, are no longer alive. There were hopes this morning that this family, including 10-month-old Kiefer, I believe, Kiefer Bibas is his name, might be among those who were released. If this turns out to be true, what is the impact of a development like this?
The reality is this: the longer this war goes on, more hostages are going to be dead, either because they will be determined to have been killed at an earlier stage, or they will die while they are being held. And they will die either at the hands of Hamas or as a result of Israel's bombing of buildings or other Hamas strongholds within the Gaza Strip. This is something that we are going to continue to see and is devastating for families in Israel who are holding out hope that their loved ones are going to return. If indeed this baby was killed at the hands of Hamas, this is certainly something that is further going to undermine talks, and also going to increase the sense of desperation within Israel to bring hostages home, which will put a different type of pressure on the Israeli government.
Well, speaking of pressures being placed on governments, Carmiel, I want to ask you about some reporting that Bloomberg has out today that Saudi Arabia has approached Iran essentially with offers of investment into a heavily sanctioned economy in return for Iran not funding other proxies that risk extending this conflict beyond just Israel and Hamas. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to take a step back and look at Saudi's role in all of this, as well as the Iranian role, both vis-a-vis each other, but also individually. It's important to remember that, of course, the Saudis, Israel, and the United States were in negotiations to reach a trilateral agreement of normalization before October 7th took place. And it was one of the motivating factors for Hamas to carry out the strikes, was because the Palestinians had largely been left out from that discussion. And frankly, Saudi concern for Palestinian interests in that context had been pretty marginal. And so what we have seen is really Saudi opportunism here at every turn. Since October 7th, the Saudis have really started to realign themselves with the Iranians. We've seen a bit more of a detente. We've seen meetings between leadership in Saudi and Iran as Saudi looks for where the opportunities are. And right now, the opportunities are in aligning the region against Israel's operation in Gaza, while public opinion is so strongly supportive of Palestinians. That said, I'm always very skeptical of interactions between the Saudis and the Iranians because they tend to be shallow and short-lived. Saudi also has an eye on ending the conflict, of course, in Yemen, which has proven to be much more cumbersome for the Saudis than they expected. While at the same time, Iran has been the beneficiary of the conflict as it is unfolding in Gaza. Iran has sought to build its axis of resistance, funding and supporting not only Hamas, but also Hezbollah, the Houthis, militias in Iraq, all of whom have engaged or at least worked to exacerbate tensions with the Israelis, albeit in a limited fashion, in a way that advances Iranian interests without actually costing Iran any lives. So I think it's important to track these developments as we see both Saudi and Iran coming together more closely, but also to view it with a little bit of skepticism in terms of actual impact.